Before you ever load up a barbell, you need a clear roadmap, and that roadmap is periodization. My name is Rick, and I've achieved a 41.5-inch vertical, and I'm dunking at 5'7". I've also helped hundreds of other athletes get healthy from their injuries and jumping higher too. So I want to share how you can periodize your training yourself. In this video, I'm specifically going to go over block periodization, which is a very common form of periodization. There are so many different ways to structure your program, like doing a conjugate approach, an undulating approach, linear approach, and those things could possibly be more effective than block training, depending on where you're at in your journey. But learning about block training is going to be an easy way to add structure to your routine. This includes a basic 3-phase model: accumulation, transmutation, and realization, which is pioneered by Vladimir Isarin, who's a sports scientist back in the days, basically pioneered block training. Let me kind of go over what periodization really is. Periodization is the planning of volume and intensity over time to drive the best possible training adaptations. Usually it's to drive a specific outcome. In this case, it's to jump higher. Keep in mind that all training routines are different and work differently, depending on when you need to peak exactly, other training stressors that you must juggle, the level you are as an athlete, and your sport-specific demands. Track versus basketball is a great example. A 100-meter sprinter usually prepares for one race at a time, while a basketball player needs to perform well over the course of a multi-month season. So the track athlete has way more room for training as opposed to the basketball athlete. Basketball athlete usually just has 3 months of an off season and then goes straight into a 6-month season. Before I explain the 3-phase process, you want to establish your baselines first. What's your 1 rep max in your squat, bench, and deadlift? What's your max vertical right now? Get those numbers and keep them in mind, because those numbers are going to guide you through each single block. Firstly, let's get into the accumulation phase. You want to build a lot of work with general type training. This is going to be your foundation block, and this normally lasts about 4 to 6 weeks. You're basically prepping yourself for the harder training cycles in the future, and high intensity jumping, weightlifting, and plyos in the future are going to be way more effective once you build a strong foundation. So in this phase, you're going to be doing high volumes at moderate intensities, looking like 3 to 5 sets of 8 to 12 reps. And physiologically, the goal is to drive muscle hypertrophy and tendon stiffness, which sets the stage for higher loads later on. This is what an example workout can look like. Starting off with 3 sets of 5 reps on a depth jump. Typically, the explosive movement would be lower volume. After that, 4 sets of 8 reps on a back squat, 3 sets of 10 reps on a hip thrust, 3 sets of 10 reps on a standing calf raise. This is only an example. This is not a set in stone workout that you must do in the accumulation phase. Keep in mind that you want to increase the weight each single week until the cycle is done. You might do a workout like this 2 times a week, combined with a jump/plyo day 1 time a week, and then upper body 2 times a week. Usually in this phase, you want to rest 60 seconds in between sets. But yeah, an example week can look like Monday, leg day, Tuesday, upper, Wednesday, leg day, Thursday, upper, Friday, jump/plyo day, and then the weekends is rest. The goal is to get into really good shape, build muscle, get leaner, get stronger, of course. Residual effects can last about 35 days or so before gains start to diminish. Basically, residuals are how long a training quality will last. For example, how long can strength last if you don't do any strength work? In this case, it can last about 35 days of not doing any high volume training before the gains of high volume training begin to diminish. At the end of those 4 to 6 weeks, go through a deload. Note that you're not guaranteed to perform well after a cycle or after a deload. Once you've developed a strong base in the accumulation phase, you shift over to the transmutation phase, lasting about 3 to 6 weeks. The goal is to teach your body how to use your newfound strength a lot more quicker and explosively. You want to create neural gains rather than muscular gains. Workload is decreased from the accumulation phase, but intensity isn't super high either. You're going to be training anywhere from 70 to 85% of your 1 rep max. So while the reps are dropping and intensity is increasing, this cycle isn't hyper specific. Instead of the 3x10 you'd be doing in the accumulation phase, you might be training in the 4x5 range in this cycle. So dropping from 30 reps to doing 20 reps. Since the sets are less dense, you're gonna have longer rest times, anywhere from 1.5 to 2 minutes. And you're gonna be doing more strength-based lifting with a sub-goal of inducing a little bit of hypertrophy too. An example workout can look like loaded jumps 3x4, back squats 5x5, RDLs 4x6, seated calf raises 4x6. Do a workout similar to that 2 times a week with upper body 2 times a week, and then a jump day once a week. The residual training effects are a lot shorter, around 2 to 3 weeks before these strength gains start to diminish. And this is because you're stressing out the nervous system rather than the muscles themselves. Strength adaptations tend to diminish a lot quicker than high volume. So after 3 to 6 weeks of that, retest your vert, retest your maxes before we focus on really overreaching for these next couple weeks, which is going to happen in the next cycle, the realization phase. Usually this cycle lasts anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks. Volume drops by a lot, but intensity is increasing by a lot to about 90 plus of your 1 rep max. This is so that your body stays fresh, but it's also keeping your central nervous system primed. The main purpose of this cycle is to prepare the athlete for comp. You might hit heavy back squats, singles or doubles. Think 3 sets by 2 reps of about 92% of your max with 2 to 3 minutes rest in between sets. This is to drive absolute strength without burying your CNS. At the same time, you'll maintain adaptations with just a couple of lighter sets, around 3x5 at roughly 60% of your max. This is so that you're not accumulating fatigue. You may be doing quote unquote specific work in this cycle. You could be doing quarter squats at a fast tempo with lighter weights, or maybe your jump sessions are cut a little bit shorter so that you're keeping those high quality daily jumping reps in. An example workout could look like 2 sets of 30 meters on a sprint, 3x1 power clean at 95% of your max, 3x2 half squats at 90% of your max, 2x4 single leg deadlifts, 2x10 pogo hops. Reminder, this is just an example. You don't have to do this exact workout. Because you're doing so little work overall, you're gonna recover quicker, which is why this block sits immediately before your competition day. And usually you wanna start the realization phase about 2 weeks before you wanna peak performance. And then bam, you're jumping at an all-time high. Usually you're gonna overreach, aka peak, within 1.5 to 2 weeks of being in this cycle. So make sure to plan it properly. Residuals in this phase are the shortest because of the amount of stress placed on the CNS. Max speed and RFD tend to detrain after 5 to 8 days of not training that quality, which is why you wanna start this phase as close to your competition as possible. And that's a simple 3-phase approach on how you can add structure to your training routine through block periodization. Keep in mind, deload after each mesocycle. What if the macrocycle runs longer than a phase's residual? For example, since high volume gains detrain after about 30 days, what happens if your macrocycle is 3 months? You're likely gonna detrain the quality, but that's not even a problem. Once your body adapts to a certain stressor, it becomes a lot easier and quicker for your body to readapt to that same stressor. So if you train that quality a second time around, you're gonna adapt at a faster rate. Disclaimer, it's not always necessary to do these phases in this specific order. It's not just about doing accumulation, transmutation, realization, repeat for years down the line. The cool thing about block training is that you can fluctuate between each of the 3 phases. Let me actually draw this. You can go back and forth between these phases of training. Look at this graph. Higher on the y-axis indicates higher volumes, okay? So you got the accumulation phase here, the transmutation phase here, and the realization phase here. Let's say you did this over the course of 2 to 3 months, and that was your off season. So you went through that exact order in your off season. So let's say over here, you did the realization phase because you want to peak during the preseason. So you got the preseason over here, and then you enter a general strength phase again, which is the transmutation phase. But let's say you want to peak about a month later. So that's why you're back to the realization phase, right? You don't have to go through the 3 phases again in order to peak for this specific event. You can just alternate between this and then this. And then let's say you don't have an event after this for a long time. That's why you got a transmutation phase over here, an accumulation phase over here, because you could afford to build training volume. Of course, you wouldn't want to do these cycles if you want to peak during this time. So it's not as simple as doing those 3 phases. You could alternate every now and then, depending on when your important days are and when you have a lot of time and energy to train and focus on creating adaptations. That's going to determine how you're going to program your training. So to summarize, accumulation for building a stronger foundation so that more specific work transfers a lot more, transmutation for building general strength and also a bit of hypertrophy so that you're starting to build off of that foundational phase, and realization where intensity is really high, velocity is really high, and intensity is really high, but volume is super low, allowing you to super compensate for an event. This is only one example on how you could add structure, so don't treat this as the only way to train. There are other methods that can be more effective depending on you as an athlete. So if you don't know which method fits you best, hop on GetUp and I'll take care of all of that for you. All of my athletes have customized plans tailored to them based on their current level, their goals, their schedule, included with 24/7 coaching and access to me. Because of that, I typically see my athletes increase their verticals by about 3 to 5 inches in 6 months. The second half of 2025 is slowly wrapping up, so apply now while you still have time. But yeah, that's all. Later.